Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. We're doing the book Leviathan Wakes, and we're on chapter 5 today, which is a Holden chapter, back with the big boy, James. So, chapter opens, and last we saw them, they'd gone to check out that dodgy ship, and they were kind of having a walk around, figuring out why it exploded, and noticing that it looked like it had been boarded rather than like shot up. And then they got a phone call from their big ship, the Canterbury, which is like the ice hauler, being like, yo, come back, there's something spicy. So we kind of join them there. And so it says, so we open, and Holden's been at 2G, so 2 gravity. With Captain McDowell called them back to get there quick as they can, as the Canterbury was warming up its massive drive, and Holden didn't want to miss the ride. And we find out that Captain McDowell said, Becca's found something on the radar, and it's sufficiently weird to make my balls creep up, which is a great phrase. And about an hour away at the gravity they were, and Alex offers to go on the juice, which is the first time we're introduced to it. And going on the juice is pilot speak for basically a drug. So when you get pulling loads of G's, it doesn't get you kind of unconscious and it stops you having a stroke. It's basically the idea. So you get loads of it, and you can do like up to 8G, and you're still aware, but it's like a stupidly high caffeine high, and the downside is really bad, but it keeps you awake and alive. And McDowell's telling Jim that he wants to see something. And they got a great line where he's on the juice, so he's not feeling great, I think, at that point. Oh, he's not on the juice because he hates it, but they're not liking the 2G. And then Holden tongs a painkiller tab from his suit's helmet, which is interesting. I don't like the idea of like there's some buttons you have to like lick, and it gives you a painkiller. It's one of the ones where it's not really mentioned that often, but I just feel like it raises so many questions of like, around your mouth is there like 10 buttons and you gotta like lick them all out to get what you want. But yeah, I wouldn't want to use someone else's helmet. So anyway, what it's saying is the Canterbury scanned kind of the space around it, and we've seen an area that is like getting warm. So space shouldn't be getting warm, and it's a small temperature climb, less than 2 degrees. It's amazing anyone spotted it, but it's like, why is that even there? Is the why they're getting so suspicious? So it's a spot's faintly warmer, and they thought it was a cloud of gas, but they're getting a radar return. Yeah, so they think it's a cloud of gas, but because there is no radar, so they're going right through it. They're not getting any pinging back. But there's no gas clouds out here, and you should know about it. They're thinking, is it the ship that killed the Scopuli? Could be a vapor cloud or something. And they realise that no, it's because the Scopuli, or the Scopuli, or the ship they was on, was from a breach rather than a torpedo. So they don't think it's that. And McDowell's just like, okay, it's fucked. Come back to the barn, Jim. Then James asks Naomi, like, what slowly gets hotter and gives no radar or LADAR return when you scan it? It's a really shitty riddle. And then Naomi's basically saying the idea there would be is if it's absorbing the radar, or the ship is the thing that's like getting warmer is discharged heat it previously had. Then all of a sudden they get a huge IR spike, must be infrared. And Holden says it's the first time he's ever heard the captain sound nervous. And a ship has just appeared in that warm cloud, and it's radiating heat like hell. So it's a frigate-sized ship, we learn. And Holden says, like, Naomi was just speculating it could be a ship that had energy absorbing radar, kind of stealth material. So it's picked up all this heat from doing space, absorbing all the radar, and also like running its reactor. And now it's to discharge all the heat because it can't keep it forever, otherwise everyone inside gets cooked. It's like a big thing in spaceships you don't really think about, is like they can't really shed heat very easily because there's not air to take it away. So I know like in Avatar, like the first shots of the ship in Avatar, it's like a really good idea for a spaceship because it's got these great radiators to kind of distribute all the heat, which is something a lot of spaceships don't really, if they're going for a full sci-fi thing, don't really include or consider. Anyway, the IR field goes, and all of a sudden you've got 6 torpedoes heading towards the Canterbury. And McDowell says, Jesus hates Christ on a pogo stick did that ship as far as spread of torpedoes. And they've got 8 minutes until they're there, and they're all assuming at this point it's still pirates, because that's like the most likely one. And they previously thought that the ship that was an SOS signal, and why McDowell didn't want to see it is because it was bait, and pirates would be kind of like luring them out there. But they've got 8 minutes until the torpedoes. And then Holden is sat on his ship, and all of a sudden everyone starts shouting. Alex wants to go on the juice and race all the way to the Canterbury. Naomi's talking about missile jamming strategies. Amos is cursing at the stealth ship and questioning the parenting of its crew, and Shed, who's the medic, is all quiet. Holden gets everyone to shut up and then turns into daddy mode. And Alex plot the fastest course to the Cant. Naomi set up a freeway channel with Becca to get the radar going. And Amos keeps swearing, but turn your microphone off. We learn Becca, who must be managing the radar stuff on the Canterbury, is giving the best they can. So they're trying to. She says, they're painting us with a targeting laser. I'm broadcasting garbage to scramble it, but they've got really good targeting laser, so it's really, really high quality, and it's too powerful. It says if they're any closer, that targeting laser will be burning a hole in our hull. So you start realizing this other ship has got stealth, it's got loads of torpedoes, it's got really powerful gear, and it starts kind of going, is it pirates? Naomi says, can you drop snow? So all the water they've been hauling from Saturn. And they start talking about it. And while they're talking about a good idea, Jim gets horny again and rings Ade, who's that girl he's been tapping. And he's about to start professing a love and stuff like that before Naomi brings him back. And he's like, could you use the ship they're on to draw away the torpedoes? So if you could like get the Canterbury get the Knight, which is the little shuttle they're on, to reflect the same kind of radar and light signatures, could it distract the torpedoes and drive them into the asteroid? And then Holden, who is, as we learned in the first thing, ex-Navy, is like, everybody's thought of this, people know this, and all that would really happen is one of those torpedoes would kill us and then something else would kill the other one. There's like no point. So very smart boys in naval labs have already thought of everything we're going to think of in the next 8 minutes, which is quite cool when you start seeing their background kind of coming to show. And any torpedo, if they were trying to disable the Canterbury, would just destroy their little ships. It's not really worth it. At this point, they're thinking, could it be going to disable and like try and get some, like, I don't know, I guess extortion, maybe taking a hostage or whatever. I mean, they did mention slavery once, didn't they? And I talked about that, so maybe that. At the moment, they're thinking, well, let's get over there, get the ship out there, and we'll try and pick up survivors or help people get out. And then, so he gets Alex to plot a bleeding G, burn and flip laid in, angled approach. So they've got to angle it so the flare from their engine doesn't burn the Canterbury. And I think bleeding G is like the idea that they'll slow in and arrive just in time with no gravity, rather than speeding or having any acceleration as they get near it. So they're trying that. And then we've got Ade saying we're going to... James starts talking to Ade, who's his bird again. And he's like, can you just stop? We're going to stop going really hard when we're able to speak. Can you just hum to me, please? Just so I can hear you breathing, because he's a nice big wetty. Holden goes into his grass scouts and palmed the button that started the juice. This time we've got palms, no more lips involved, and tongs. This is a dozen needles stuck into his back from membranes in his suit. His heart shuddered. Chemical bands of iron gripped his brain. His spine went dead and cold. His face flushed like a radiation burn. He pounded a fist into the arm of the crash scout. He hated this part, but the next one was worse. Alex was whooping, and the others below deck were getting the drugs that kept them from dying, but get them sedated through the worst of it. So only him and Alex are on the juice. Everyone else has been like clocked off. Alex says 1, and Holden weighed 500 kilos. The nerves at the back of his eye sockets screamed at the massive load. Nice. Of his eyeballs. His testicles crushed themselves against his thighs. He concentrated on not swallowing his tongue. Around him the ship creaked and groaned. There was a disconcerting bang from below decks, but nothing on his panel went red. The Knight's torch drive could deliver a lot of thrust, but at the cost of fuel burn rate. So basically, they've hit the metal. Holden he's drugged up to his titties. His balls are breaking his thighs, and he's ready to fucking go. And the entire time, he sat there enjoying listening to the breathing of Ade, because she isn't humming, but she's giving it a good go. He's more awake than he's ever been, he says. Back on the Cant, McDowell, who's the old boy, is basically like, can we try and burn and do something about that? And the ship, Ade people there, the drivers are like, if you do it, we'll break the ship apart. And he's like, I don't care, I'm not going to bill you. They start doing it. Holden has to turn the comm volume down. It doesn't describe how he does that, so I'm going to assume it's his tongue, and there's another button. There's a banshee scream, and also the Canterbury is broken, and it's down. The drive is broken, and it's only down to manoeuvring thrusters. And the torpedoes are 40 clicks a second accelerating, and they've got no engine now. They realise they're going to hit us. They're going down. There's no way about it. McDowell says to Jim, we're going down. Click twice to acknowledge. Jim clicked the radio twice. Again, not said. I'm assuming the tongue. And we went for that, and so they're going to broadcast the SOS period. and stuff like that. And if they toss everyone out an airlock, they need witnesses. So McDowell saying, turn around, Jim, hide behind that asteroid, call for help, order. Jim clicked twice, told Alex to stop the engine, and the giant sitting on his chest disappeared as they start floating. And they realise the only reason he hadn't thrown up is because of anti-nausea drugs. So his teeth are chattering from the juice. And what they're going to do now is they're going to call for help and negotiate a release of any prisoners once the bad guys have the ship, because they're still assuming they're going to take over it. And they're going to hide behind the asteroid. And Alex says, with a great bit of foreshadowing, I'd kill for a couple of tubes or a nice keel-mounted railgun. A keel-mounted railgun it comes up so much in their books. It's definitely one you want to drink to if you read it. So what's happening now is he's calling Arde again. They're off to go hide, leaving the Kant. And he rings her back, and all he can hear is the breathing as Alex is crushing him again with the high G. And she's slowly calling out the timer, so it says 30 seconds. He wants to talk, to say something comforting, to make ludicrous and untrue assertions of love. The giant standing on his chest has laughed with the deep rumble of their fusion torch. And McDowell saying, get ready to play dead so they don't shoot them again once they've been captured. And Arde slowly counts his way down. Then all of a sudden, there's a sharp white. Arde takes a single breath, you don't hear the end of it. Holden's eardrums nearly burst from the noise coming out of his headphones. All the sensors flared into overload, and white light starts pouring through the airlocks. And Alex goes, my God, they nuked her. They nuked the Kant. So they thought they were going to just board them and like take some hostages and stuff. And all of a sudden they realised that their big ship with all their friends and their life on. And also like the only way they can survive, because they're on a tiny little tea kettle thing. Well, not a proper ship anyway, has been blown up. And all the sensors are fried. They get nothing on the radar. Alex says she's a cloud of vapour the size of Olympus Mons. She's just gone. Holden's mind says that doesn't happen. Pirates don't nuke water haulers. No one wins. No one gets paid. And if you want to murder 50 people, walking into a restaurant with a machine gun is a lot easier. And he realises, I'm the old man now. He's in charge. And he starts going, Alex, we're witnesses to murder. Start compiling a broadcast. We're going to talk about it. And he needs to get the sensors back on. And he realises he's still on the juice. So his hands are shaking. He's nauseated. His body felt like he was operating his flesh from a distance, and he didn't know how much was the juice and how much was shock. He starts realising that their ship is shielded against radiation, because when you're in space, there's just radiation everywhere. But they're very lucky that all the sensors are still working, because the sensor would be overloaded with all the information. And once he gets them back on, he scans the area, and there's nothing larger than a softball. It's been completely blown up. And the ship that did it, because they can pick it on their radar now, is flying sunward at allegedly 1G. And then he aneurysm-induced rage, and we get a great Holden moment here of thinking, not thinking, just doing what feels right. And he rings up, sends a message out to that ship going by, and says, this message is to whoever ordered the destruction of the Canterbury, the civilian ice freighter you just blew into gas. You don't get to just fly away, you murderous son of a bitch. I don't care what your reasons are, but you killed 50 of my friends. You just need to know who they are. I'm sending the name and photograph of everyone who died in that ship. Take a good look what you did. Think about that while I work at finding out who you are. Which is such Holden energy of he has nothing to do and he has to strike out. It's like, you just love it. And Naomi's like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing? Because he's just sending the personal files of everybody who's just died to the murderer. Which is just like, it's like a great last stand, but also it's, I don't know, sending all these people's like lives. He says, I'm showing them that they killed real people and stuff like that. And it's this constant humanization Holden has of his enemies. He thinks they're human like him. Naomi's like, I don't think they really appreciate it. And they start using their targeting laser on their ship, but no torpedoes launch, and they just kind of leave because they realise it's nothing. It's like they're like tiny boys that don't care. And he gets the rest of the boys up after they've been sedated. Amos was mottled red and white, his big hands clenched and unclenching. And Naomi's like, what are we going to do now, Captain? Because we've realised Holden's in charge, which means Naomi's the XO because she's second in charge. Holden's like, I want to kill him. But otherwise we're going to keep an eye on them, follow them, and try and expose them to everybody. Amos is like, hell yeah. And then Naomi kind of subtly takes charge. Says, Amos, take Shed downstairs and sedate him if he needs it. To which Amos says, you got it, boss, and carries him away. Naomi turns to Holden and goes, nah, we're not doing that, mate. Which is a great way of Naomi just kind of immediately taking people out. Everyone knows Amos only answers to Naomi. And then she kind of says, yeah, you're in charge. That makes me second in command. And you being an idiot, you're not going to kill us. Broadcast another emotional plea, what are you going to do? And your job now as captain is to get us 4 to safety, like the 4 other members of the crew. And Holden stands up, kind of squares up to her, realizes he's shaking and stuff, and says, "Glad you're with me." Naomi looks over him critically. Could see her. Holden says he could see her distrust. He didn't defend himself. He just waited until she was done. She nodded at him once and climbed down the ladder. And then he starts putting up like a broadcast package of all the things he's seen, so he can try and identify it and get them to safety. Well, Alex comes down and climbs and starts talking about the stealth ship, because he's saying it has to be stealth, and the only people that would have that would be the Martian Navy or the Earthers, because no way a pirate would have it. And Alex is ex-Martian, so he reckons he saw something similar when he was there. And says we're working on ships with energy-absorbing skins and internal heat sinks. Says you can't hide an active drive, but if you can get into position, shut your drive down, store your waste heat internally, then you can hide yourself pretty good. Add in the energy-absorbing skin, and radar and LADAR and passive sensors don't pick you up, and it's pretty tough for a pirate to get a nuclear torpedo. So he starts kind of realising, okay, this is probably not a pirate in this one. Obviously it takes Holden a while, because he's lovely, but he's a bit thick. And they get out the transmitter they recover from the scopuli, which previously drew them there. And they open the back, and they find the back of the battery. It says Martian Congressional Republic Navy. You're like, dun dun dun, the Martians have done it. So James whips up the broadcast, sets it to full power, says, "My name is James Holden, and my ship, the Canterbury, was just destroyed by a warship with stealth technology and what appears to be parts stamped with Martian Navy serial numbers. Data stream to follow." Which is great Holden energy. And that broadcast is kind of what gets, like it's mentioned later on as like the big thing Holden does, where he just stands up and says he's going to do something, and people recognise him, and it's what we've just seen Miller. And I think in the next chapter we kind of see the consequences of that, the immediate ones from Miller's perspective. But yeah, thank you for that, everybody. Hope you have a lovely day.